My wife's parents will take your room, Mom, my son announced like a landlord, not a child. I packed quietly, as if defeated, but the next morning, it wasn't my bags at the door, it was their eviction notice. I'm curious, where in the world are you joining us from? Drop your city or country in the comments and make sure you're subscribed for all the latest updates. The tea in Evelyn's hands had long gone lukewarm, but she still held the delicate porcelain cup as though it might anchor her to the moment. The late afternoon sunlight streamed through the lace curtains of the living room, dancing over framed photographs and the worn floral couch that had been hers since Adam was a boy. This house wasn't just walls and windows, it was memory stitched into every corner. And then Adam said it, just like he was talking about swapping out a rug. Mom, my wife's parents will take your room. The words seemed to echo off the walls, louder than his casual tone should have allowed. Evelyn blinked, forcing a soft smile she didn't feel. Surely I misheard him. Surely this is about rearranging furniture, not rearranging my life. You're what? She asked, her voice thinner than she intended. Adam, standing by the mantel with his hands shoved deep into his pockets, didn't flinch. Clara's parents need a place to stay. It makes sense. We've talked about it, and this works best for everyone. Her fingers tightened around the cup. Everyone? Adam sighed, as though she were a child who'd missed the obvious. You know you've said the stairs are getting harder. The house is too big. Clara thinks, well, we both think you'd be happier in your own space. Smaller. Easier to manage. Evelyn's heartbeat thudded in her ears. Smaller. Easier. Happier. The words carried the sting of a polite eviction notice. She searched his face for hesitation, a trace of guilt, but found only practicality. Adam, she set the cup down carefully, afraid her trembling hands might betray her. This is my home. His tone softened, but not enough. Mom, it's just time. You'd be more comfortable somewhere else. And Clara's parents, they really need this. You understand, don't you? The plea in his eyes was for agreement, not understanding. Evelyn swallowed the lump in her throat. You've already decided. There it was, a flicker of discomfort, but he nodded anyway. It's what makes sense. The room suddenly felt colder. Evelyn's gaze drifted to the family photographs lining the shelves. Adam at 6, grinning with missing teeth. Adam at 12, in his Little League uniform. Adam at 18, holding a diploma while she stood beside him, beaming. She had built this life, this house with her late husband. She had held on to it when grief threatened to hollow her out. Every floorboard, every nail carried her story. And now, without so much as a conversation, she was being told to step aside. Her throat tightened, but she forced her lips into something resembling a smile. If it's what you think is best, she said softly, though each word scraped her insides raw. Adam exhaled in relief, as though her compliance was the only outcome he had expected. He leaned down, kissed her temple absently, and murmured, You'll see, Mom. This will be better for everyone. And then he was gone, heading upstairs to check on something, already moving on to the next task. The silence he left behind pressed heavy against her chest. Evelyn sat perfectly still, her hands folded tightly in her lap, afraid that if she moved, the grief would spill out in sobs. Her eyes swept across the room, trying to memorize it all. The dent in the armchair where she always sat, the grandfather clock's steady rhythm, the faint scent of lavender polish on the oak table. Her sanctuary was no longer hers. Evelyn looked around her home, heart hammering as the reality sank in. Is this my future now? I nodded, but inside I was slowly crumbling. The house was quiet after Adam left, but Evelyn felt the silence differently now, like the hush before a storm. She traced her hand along the armrest of her chair, the fabric worn smooth from years of evenings spent reading, knitting, or just staring out at the garden. Soon, all of it would no longer belong to her. That evening, Clara called. Her daughter-in-law's voice was cheerful, almost rehearsed. Evelyn, hi. I just wanted to check in. Adam said he spoke with you about the arrangements. Arrangements. Evelyn pressed the phone tighter to her ear. Even the words sounded like something meant for strangers, not family. Yes, she managed. Clara's tone brightened, as if Evelyn's simple confirmation was agreement. Good. Good. I'll help you pack when you're ready. Don't worry, we'll make this transition smooth. You'll be much more comfortable somewhere smaller. Smaller again. Always smaller. Evelyn swallowed hard. I'll take care of it. After hanging up, she sat for a long time in the fading light before finally rising to fetch some boxes from the garage. If she started tonight, maybe she could numb herself to the reality of it. She opened the first drawer of her nightstand. Old birthday cards, a yellowing photograph of her wedding day, her late husband's watch. She touched the cool metal, remembering the way it had looked on his wrist when he'd mow the lawn or pour her coffee. Her chest ached, but she wrapped it carefully in tissue paper and placed it in the box. Each item she packed felt like removing a brick from her identity. By the time Adam returned home, Evelyn had filled 2 boxes. He didn't notice the redness in her eyes, only the efficiency of her progress. Thanks, Mom. This is really going to help us out. Clara's parents will be moving their things in next weekend. Her hands stilled. So soon? That quickly? She asked. Adam shrugged. No sense dragging it out. He leaned down to kiss her cheek. You'll thank us one day. You'll be happier, I promise. Evelyn smiled weakly, but her stomach turned. Later that night she stood in her bedroom surrounded by half-packed boxes. The familiar scent of lavender sachets clung to her clothes, mingling with the cardboard smell of new emptiness. Her reflection in the mirror looked smaller, diminished somehow. Not the woman who had raised 2 children and kept a home for decades, but someone being shuffled aside like an afterthought. Her silence, she realized, was her only form of resistance, but even that felt hollow. The next morning, Adam was at the kitchen table with blueprints spread out, already discussing renovations. Once Clara's parents are settled, we'll knock out the wall to make a bigger suite for them. Maybe upgrade the bathroom too. It'll be nice having them close. Evelyn stirred her tea slowly, staring at the swirling liquid. And me, she asked. Adam looked up, confused. What do you mean? Where do I fit in all this? You'll have your own place, your independence. Isn't that what you want? She forced a nod, though every muscle in her body screamed otherwise. That evening, Evelyn stacked the boxes neatly against the wall. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at them until her vision blurred. Her son believed he was helping. Clara acted as though this was kindness. But Evelyn knew the truth. Her life was being boxed up alongside her belongings, one quiet compromise at a time. Evelyn stared at the packed boxes, her hands trembling. Am I losing myself in all of this? It wasn't just the room, it was everything I had built in this house. The days blurred into one another, each box Evelyn packed feeling like a piece of herself being dismantled. At first, she thought the hardest part would be sorting through her belongings, but no, it was listening to Adam and Clara make plans as though she were already gone. On Tuesday afternoon, she overheard Adam in the kitchen. Once Mom's things are cleared, we can start the remodel. Clara's parents want their own sitting area, so we'll knock down the wall by the den. Maybe new cabinets too. Clara's soft laughter followed. Perfect. They'll love it here. Evelyn froze in the hallway, her hand resting against the wall she had painted herself years ago. They were speaking of her home as if she had never existed in it. Later, Clara poked her head into Evelyn's room. Need any help with those boxes? Evelyn forced a polite smile. No, thank you. Clara lingered, her tone saccharine. You'll see, Evelyn, this is going to be good for you. A fresh start. Less space to manage, more time for yourself. Fresh start. Evelyn's throat tightened. She didn't want a fresh start. She wanted her life as it was, rooted in the walls that held every memory of her husband, her children, her years of sacrifice. When Clara finally left, Evelyn sat on the bed, clutching a photo album to her chest. That evening, she called June. Her best friend's warm, gravelly voice answered on the 3rd ring. Evelyn, what's going on? You sound upset. Evelyn let the words tumble out. Adam's decision, Clara's cheerfulness, the boxes, the renovations. June was quiet for a moment. Honey, that sounds off. They're treating you like a guest in your own life. Tears pricked Evelyn's eyes. I don't know what to do. I don't want to lose Adam, but I can't live like this. June sighed. You deserve better than this. You've given everything to that house, to that family. They should be asking you what you want, not telling you. Her friend's words rang true, but Evelyn felt powerless. Later, Evelyn opened another box and pulled out old family photos. Adam at 3 with cake smeared on his cheeks. Adam at 17, tall and proud in his prom tuxedo. Adam holding Clara's hand at their wedding. She traced his smiling face with her finger. How had that boy grown into the man who could push her aside so casually? The sound of Adam's voice drifted upstairs. "Mom, don't worry. You'll be fine once you move. Trust me, it'll be good for you." The dismissiveness in his tone was too much. Evelyn shut the album, her hands shaking. That night, she stood at her bedroom door, looking around. The walls painted a soft sage green. The quilt she had sewn herself. The small lamp Henry had bought her on their 20th anniversary. Every detail was a piece of her history. And yet in Adam's eyes, it was all disposable. She whispered into the empty room, "It's not just a room, it's my life." The truth hit her like a wave. This wasn't about square footage, it was about being erased. That evening, Evelyn sat on the edge of her bed, staring into the familiar room she was being forced to abandon. Can I keep living under these conditions? The silence between us wasn't peaceful, it was suffocating. By Friday, the house no longer felt like hers. Boxes lined the doorway. The furniture she had polished and cared for looked bare without the photos that had once adorned it. Evelyn moved through the rooms like a ghost, careful not to disturb Adam and Clara's growing plans. One evening, while setting down her teacup, she caught voices drifting from the kitchen. She paused in the hallway, listening. "Once she's out, we'll finally have room to breathe," Clara was saying, her tone matter-of-fact. Adam's reply was softer, but firm. "Yeah, it's better this way. She'll be fine." The words lodged like shards of glass in Evelyn's chest. Better this way, she'll be fine. As if she were nothing more than an obstacle to their comfort. That night at dinner, the air felt thick with unspoken tension. Adam pushed food around on his plate, avoiding her eyes. Clara made light conversation about paint colors for the den. Evelyn's fork clattered against the plate. "Do you two even hear yourselves?" Her voice cracked, startling them both. "I'm sitting right here, and you're planning my life like I'm not even in the room." Adam blinked. "Mom? It's not like that. It is exactly like that," she snapped, heat rising in her cheeks. "I'm not some burden you can tuck away. This is my home, my life, my memories." Clara shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Adam for backup. "Mom?" Adam said carefully, as if speaking to a child on the verge of a tantrum, "We're just trying to make things easier." "Easier for who?" Evelyn shot back. Her hands trembled, but her voice grew steadier. "Because it certainly isn't easier for me." The silence that followed pressed down heavy, suffocating. Adam set his fork down and leaned back, his expression unreadable. "You're overreacting. You'll see it'll be good for you once you've adjusted." The dismissal cut deeper than anything else. Evelyn's chest constricted, her breath uneven. Something inside her snapped. She shoved back her chair, the legs scraping against the hardwood. "I'm done." "Mom, wait," Adam said, rising quickly. "Let's just talk." "No." Her voice trembled but held. "Talking means I get a say. I haven't had one in months." Her hands moved on their own, pulling a half-packed box toward her, stuffing in clothes, photo albums, a quilt. Clara stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene. "Mom, please." Adam's voice cracked, guilt finally surfacing. "You don't have to do this tonight." Evelyn paused, meeting his eyes. For the first time in years, she saw the boy he once was, the one who used to run to her after school, eager to tell her about his day, but that boy was gone, replaced by a man who saw her as an inconvenience. "I can't stay here," she whispered. "Not like this." Clara spoke up at last. "Evelyn, you're tired. Let's talk in the morning." Evelyn shook her head, slamming the box shut. "No more mornings. No more waiting." She carried the box to her car, her breath coming in short bursts. Adam followed her down the driveway, his face pale in the porch light. "Mom, don't go. Please." Evelyn placed the box in the back seat and straightened, her shoulders squared. "I gave you everything, Adam, and in return you pushed me out of my own home." Her voice cracked, but her gaze stayed steady. "I won't let you take my dignity too." She slid into the driver's seat, started the engine and pulled away from the curb. In the rearview mirror, Adam stood frozen at the end of the driveway, his mouth opening as if to call out, but no words came. Evelyn's sudden decision to leave forces Adam to confront his actions. He realizes he may have crossed a line. Evelyn drove into the night, her box rattling in the back seat, her hands shaking on the wheel. She had no plan, no destination, only one thought pounding in her head: "I will reclaim my dignity, no matter what it takes." I arrived at the small apartment, but it didn't feel like a fresh start. It felt like a cage. The apartment complex sat at the edge of town, a squat brick building with faded shutters and a parking lot full of crap. Evelyn parked under a flickering streetlight, gripping the steering wheel as though it could hold her together. She carried the box inside herself, no Adam to lift it, no Clara to hover. Just her, and the sound of her own breath echoing in the dim stairway. Unit 3B smelled faintly of bleach and dust. The beige walls stretched blankly around her, impersonal and silent. A single bulb in the kitchen flickered overhead as if protesting her arrival. Evelyn set the box on the counter and looked around. The living room was small, the carpet threadbare, the radiator groaning in the corner. It was a place meant for passing through, not for building a life. She unpacked slowly, placing her husband's watch on the nightstand, the quilt at the foot of the bed. But no matter how carefully she arranged them, the apartment still felt foreign, like trying to make a stranger's house her own. When she pulled back the thin curtains, the view offered nothing but the cracked pavement of the lot below and the faint glow of a neon laundromat sign across the street. Her chest tightened. At her old home she'd had a garden, roses and lilies, bees buzzing lazily in the afternoon sun. Here, there was only concrete. The phone rang. "Adam." She hesitated before answering. "Hello, Mom?" His voice was strained, softer than before. I'm sorry about how things went. I didn't want you to leave like that." Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the carpet. "You gave me no choice, Adam." He sighed. "I thought I was doing the right thing. Clara's parents." She cut him off. "This isn't about Clara's parents. It's about you deciding my life without asking me." Silence stretched on the line. Finally he said, "I'll come by tomorrow. We'll talk." "Maybe," she murmured, and hung up. Not long after, the phone buzzed again. "Clara." Evelyn stared at the name for a long moment before answering. "Evelyn, hi. I just wanted to check on you. I hope you're adjusting okay." Her voice was bright, but Evelyn heard the distance underneath. Clara didn't sound worried about her. She sounded relieved that the transition was underway. "I'll manage," Evelyn replied flatly. "That's good. Really, this will be good for everyone. A fresh start." That phrase again. Evelyn's jaw tightened. She ended the call quickly, setting the phone down as though it burned her hand. She wandered the apartment, but no matter where she stood, it felt hollow. Too quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't soothe. She sat at the small kitchen table and stared at the boxes, stacked against the wall. Each one held fragments of her life, but here they looked diminished, stripped of meaning. She whispered into the stillness, "This isn't home. It's just a holding cell." The radiator hissed in response. Hours passed. She lay awake in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the sounds of neighbors through thin walls, a baby crying, footsteps overhead, a television blaring a laugh track. She closed her eyes, but the darkness didn't comfort her. It pressed against her chest, reminding her she was utterly alone. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from the landlord. "Evelyn, if you're ready, we can finalize the lease tomorrow." Her throat tightened as she read it again. Permanent. That word. Was she really ready to make this exile permanent? Evelyn stared at the landlord's text, her heart heavy. Do I make this place permanent, or fight for the life I'm being forced to give up? It wasn't just the move, it was the slow erosion of our relationship. The first week in the apartment dragged on like a gray winter. Evelyn tried to create routines, morning tea at the wobbly kitchen table, short walks around the block, reading in the evenings, but nothing felt right. Every sound echoed, every silence deepened. The house she had left behind seemed to haunt her. She could picture Adam in the den, Clara in the kitchen, the murmur of voices carrying through the hallways that used to be hers. Now her only company was the radiator's uneven hiss. On Wednesday, her phone buzzed, a text from Adam. "Hey Mom, you doing okay?" She stared at it, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. What was she supposed to say? That her chest ached each time she looked at the boxes she hadn't unpacked. That the bed felt like sleeping on someone else's mistakes. She typed back, "I'm fine." The lie sat heavy in her stomach. Later that day, Clara texted too. "Hope you're adjusting to the change. Let me know if you need anything." Adjusting, Evelyn set the phone down without replying. To Clara, this was just logistics. A reshuffling of space. But for Evelyn it was a dismantling of everything she'd built. Everything she was. That evening she called June. "Evelyn, you sound exhausted," her friend said immediately. "I am," Evelyn admitted. She sat curled in the stiff armchair, the phone warm against her cheek. "I feel like I don't matter to them anymore, like I was just in the way." "Oh honey," June sighed, "you're not in the way. You're their mother. But if you keep staying quiet, they'll keep making decisions without you." Evelyn swallowed hard. "I don't want to be difficult." "Difficult?" June's voice sharpened. "Standing up for yourself isn't being difficult. It's being alive. You deserve better than this silence." The words rang in Evelyn's ears long after they hung up. Still, when Adam called the next day, Evelyn's voice came out soft, measured. "Hey Mom," he said. "Just checking in." "I'm managing," she said. "That's good. Clara and I want you to know we really appreciate you being flexible." Flexible. Evelyn bit her tongue. Was that what he thought this was? Her flexibility? Not her grief. Not her erasure. Just her cooperation. "Sure," she whispered, but her throat burned. That weekend, Evelyn tried to distract herself by organizing the apartment. She unpacked dishes, folded linens, stacked books on a flimsy shelf, but with every item, the truth pressed harder against her chest. She was decorating a place she had never chosen. The knock at the door startled her. When she opened it, Clara stood there, her smile too polished. "Evelyn, hi." She held a paper bag. "I brought muffins. Thought we could talk." Evelyn stepped aside reluctantly, her pulse quickening. Clara set the bag on the counter, looking around the apartment as though taking inventory. "This is nice," Clara said lightly, though her eyes betrayed something else. Relief, maybe, that Evelyn was no longer in their home. Evelyn folded her arms. "Why are you really here, Clara?" Clara hesitated, her smile faltering. "We need to talk." Evelyn stiffened, bracing herself. Whatever Clara was about to say, it would change everything. "I wasn't going to be talked down to anymore. I was going to speak my truth." Clara's smile was too smooth, the kind of smile that asked for compliance without saying a word. She set the muffins on the counter, as if the offering could soften the blow of what she was about to say. Evelyn stood with her arms crossed, refusing to make it easy. "What do you want, Clara?" Clara shifted, smoothing her skirt. "I just wanted to check in, see how you're adjusting." "Adjusting?" Evelyn repeated, her voice sharp. "To being pushed out of my own home." Clara blinked, her composure faltering. "That's not fair, Evelyn. This wasn't just my decision." Evelyn's chest tightened, but she forced herself to hold Clara's gaze. "No, it was Adam's, wasn't it? And you just stood there. You let it happen." Clara's voice grew defensive. "I supported my husband. That's what wives do. It was his idea, not mine." Evelyn felt her voice rising, years of quiet compliance cracking open. "Don't you dare shift the blame. You could have stopped him. You could have said, 'No, Adam, this isn't right. Your mother belongs here.' But you didn't. You smiled. You nodded. You watched me pack up my life like it was old furniture." The air between them grew heavy. Clara fiddled with her hands, her tone brittle. "You're making it sound worse than it was. We thought you'd be happier somewhere smaller." "Happier?" Evelyn let out a laugh, bitter and sharp. "Do I look happier to you?" She swept her arm across the apartment. The bare walls, the boxes still stacked in corners, the hollow silence that seemed to mock her. "This isn't happiness. This is exile. For once, Clara had no quick reply. Evelyn's voice steadied, her anger cooling into something more dangerous. Clarity. You've treated me like a burden, Clara, like a problem to solve, but I am not a problem. I am Adam's mother. I raised him in that house. Every memory in his life began under that roof, and you wanted me gone to make space for your parents. Clara flinched, but said nothing. Evelyn leaned closer, her voice low but firm. I will not be erased. Not by you, not by anyone. Clara's mask cracked then, just slightly. Evelyn, I didn't mean for you to feel unwanted. We just thought. She trailed off, her hands tightening around her purse strap. You thought wrong, Evelyn interrupted. The silence stretched. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space, the ticking of the wall clock punctuating the tension. Finally, Clara cleared her throat. Maybe we should talk again later. When things calmed down, she turned toward the door, her polished composure slipping as she reached for the handle. Evelyn didn't stop her. She didn't need to. The words had been spoken, the truth laid bare. And for the first time in months, Evelyn felt lighter, not happy, not yet, but strong. When the door shut behind Clara, Evelyn sank into the chair by the table. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from relief. She whispered into the quiet apartment, her voice steady. How much longer will I let them control my life? I needed to take control, or I would lose everything. My peace, my voice, my self-worth. The morning after Clara's visit, Evelyn sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the half-eaten muffin Clara had left behind. It sat on a napkin like an unwanted gift, sweet on the outside, but bitter in meaning. She pushed it away. Her confrontation had left her shaken, but it also left her clear. If she kept waiting for Adam and Clara to hand her dignity back, she'd be waiting forever. She pulled a notepad from a drawer, and began to write. At the top, in large letters she scrawled, "What I want, freedom, my voice back, a place that feels like mine." The words looked small on paper, but they carried the weight of her entire future. Later that afternoon, she called Grace. Her oldest friend picked up on the first ring. "You sound different," Grace said. "What happened?" I told Clara exactly how I felt. Evelyn admitted, her heart quickening just saying it aloud. Grace laughed softly. "Good for you. And how did she take it?" Like I'd slapped her with the truth. "But Grace, I realized something. I can't just argue. I need a plan." Grace was quiet for a beat, then spoke with the careful tone she reserved for serious matters. "Evelyn, if you're serious, talk to a lawyer. Find out what your rights are. Don't let them back you into a corner." Evelyn nodded, though Grace couldn't see it. "You're right. I've been too afraid to make waves. But I'm done being afraid." The next morning, Evelyn found herself in a tidy office downtown. The lawyer, Foster, listened intently as Evelyn recounted the events of the past weeks. The sudden eviction, the forced move, the way decisions had been made without her. When she finished, Ms. Foster leaned forward. "You have more rights than they'd like you to believe. That, if your name is still tied to it, they can't just move you out without your consent, and any financial pressure they're applying can be challenged." Evelyn's chest lifted with a mix of relief and indignation. "So I wasn't powerless all along." "Not at all," Ms. Foster said firmly. "But they've been counting on your silence." Evelyn felt the sting of the truth. She had been silent. She had let her fear keep her compliant. No more. Back in her apartment, Evelyn opened her notepad again. Under "what I want," she added "protect my assets, set boundaries with Adam." The list no longer looked like a fantasy. It looked like a strategy. She paced the small living room, rehearsing the words she wanted to say to Adam. "You don't get to decide my future. You don't get to erase me." Each phrase rang stronger the more she repeated. That night, she sat at the kitchen table with pen and paper, drafting a letter. The words didn't come easily. Her hand trembled as she wrote. "Adam, we need to talk. Not about what's easiest for you or Clara, but about my life, my home and my future. I will not be dismissed anymore. We will have a real conversation on equal terms, or we will have none at all." She signed it simply, "Mom." As she folded the paper and slipped it into an envelope, Evelyn felt a strange calm settle over her. For the first time since Adam had spoken those fateful words, "My wife's parents will take your room, Mom," she felt like she was no longer drifting. She had a direction. Evelyn sealed the envelope and set it on the table. Tomorrow, Adam would read her words, and for once he would have to face her on her terms. The truth was more painful than I could have imagined. Everything I thought I knew had been turned upside down. Adam sat across from Evelyn at the small cafe near her apartment, his hands wrapped tightly around a mug of coffee he hadn't touched. He looked older than she remembered, tired lines around his eyes, a nervous twitch in his jaw. She slid the folded letter across the table. "Read it again if you need to," she said softly, but firmly. Adam glanced at it, then pushed it back. "I don't need to. I got your message." "Good," Evelyn said, meeting his gaze. "Then you know I won't be treated like some piece of furniture you can move when it's convenient." "I want the truth, Adam. Why did you do it? Why now?" Adam shifted in his seat, his eyes darting to the window, then back to her. "Mom, you wouldn't understand. Try me," she pressed. He exhaled, long and heavy, then leaned forward. It wasn't just about Clara's parents. It was about money. Evelyn's stomach clenched. "Money?" Adam nodded, shame flickering across his face. "Things haven't been good. The house, the mortgage, the repairs. It's been bleeding us dry. Clara's parents offered to help cover the bills if they moved in. It seemed like the only option." Evelyn stared at him, her chest tightening. "So you sacrificed me for their money?" "It's not like that," Adam said quickly. "I thought if you moved somewhere smaller, you'd be better off too, less stress, less responsibility. I told myself I was protecting you, protecting me." Her voice rose, drawing a glance from a couple at the next table. "Adam, you didn't even ask me. You just decided. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" His eyes dropped to the table, and for the first time, Evelyn saw something she hadn't expected. "Guilt. I didn't want you to see," he murmured. "See what?" He hesitated, then said quietly. "How badly I failed. The debt, the bills piling up, the late notices. Clara's parents know. They offered help, but only if they had a place in the house. I thought, if you were gone, no one would have to know." Evelyn sat back, her hands trembling in her lap. For weeks she'd told herself she was being erased out of convenience, out of selfishness. But this was different. "You lied to me," she whispered. "You let me believe I was the burden, when all along it was you." Adam's face tightened, his voice almost breaking. "I didn't want to put this on you, Mom. You've carried enough in your life. I thought if I kept it quiet, I could fix it, but I couldn't. And now, it's a mess." Evelyn looked at him, her son, grown, married, and yet still the boy she once tucked into bed. Part of her ached for him, another part of her burned with betrayal. "Do you realize," she said slowly, "that instead of trusting me, you discarded me? You made me believe I didn't matter, Adam, that my place in your life was disposable." Adam rubbed his face with both hands. "I know. I see that now, and I hate myself for it." The silence between them was thick, filled with words neither of them could take back. Finally, Adam looked up, his eyes wet. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have told you. I should have trusted you." Evelyn didn't answer right away. She stared out the cafe window at the passing cars, the lives moving on around them. Her son's apology rang hollow in her chest, not because it wasn't sincere, but because it was too late. Adam's voice broke through her thoughts, trembling with confession. "I didn't want you to see what I've been hiding from you." Evelyn turned back to him, her breath catching. What else had he kept from her? I wasn't alone in this fight. Someone was finally speaking up for me. Evelyn walked back to her apartment after the cafe meeting, Adam's words replaying in her head. Debt, late notices, Clara's parents moving in as love. The truth was a jagged stone lodged in her chest. She wanted to scream, to cry, but mostly, she wanted to stop feeling powerless. That evening, she poured herself tea and sat at the kitchen table, staring at her list. Freedom, my voice back, a place that feels like mine, protect my set boundaries with Adam. For the first time, Those words didn't feel like a wish list. They felt like survival. Her phone buzzed. Grace's name lit up the screen. "Well?" Grace's voice came through, warm but sharp with curiosity. "Did you get answers?" Evelyn let out a long breath. "I did. And they weren't what I expected." She explained everything. Adam's debt, Clara's parents, the unspoken desperation behind his decision. Grace listened, quiet, until the end. Then she said firmly, "Evelyn, you can't carry this alone. You need help." 2 days later, Grace arrived with someone Evelyn hadn't seen in years. Diane, a woman Evelyn once worked with at the library. "I thought you two should reconnect," Grace said, ushering Diane inside. Diane still had the same quick smile and steady eyes. "Evelyn, remember, Grace told me what's going on," she said gently. "And I think I can help." Evelyn blinked. "Help? How?" Diane set her bag on the table and pulled out a folder. "Before your husband passed, I helped him organize some of his accounts. He was worried about protecting you. I still have copies of certain documents. I think they could shed light on what Adam has been doing." Evelyn's breath caught. "You have records?" Diane nodded. "Some. Enough to show whether Adam has been diverting money or putting your share at risk." As Diane spread out the papers, Evelyn felt both sick and grateful. Sick at the thought that Adam might have been meddling in finances she hadn't touched in years. Grateful that someone at last was on her side. "Why are you doing this?" Evelyn asked quietly. "Because you deserve the truth," Diane said simply. "And because your husband trusted me to keep watch if anything ever looked off." The words landed like a bomb. For the first time in months, Evelyn didn't feel completely alone. They spent the afternoon reviewing numbers, dates, and signatures. Evelyn tried to follow, though much of it blurred into anxiety. Diane explained patiently, pointing out inconsistencies, withdrawals Evelyn hadn't authorized, shifts in accounts that made little sense. By evening, Evelyn sat back, her head spinning. "So Adam, he might have been pulling from accounts meant for me?" Diane's face was grim. "It looks that way, but don't panic. With the right advisor, we can secure your portion before things get worse." Grace reached across the table, squeezing Evelyn's hand. "See? You've got allies now. You don't have to fight this battle in the dark." That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, the city lights flickering outside, her heart a storm of fear and determination. Adam's betrayal ran deeper than she had realized. But now she had proof. She had people who believed her. She whispered to herself, "This isn't the end, it's just the beginning." The next morning, Diane called. "I've set up a meeting with a financial advisor I trust. He can help you protect what's yours." Evelyn felt her spine straighten as she replied, "Set it up. I'm ready." As she hung up the phone, Evelyn stared at the folder Diane had left behind. Inside was evidence strong enough to shatter Adam's excuses, and she was finally ready to use it. "I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm taking control of my future." The living room felt colder than Evelyn remembered. Adam had invited her back to the house to talk, but the warmth it once held had been replaced by a tension that pressed against her skin. Clara wasn't there, just Adam shifting uncomfortably in the armchair, avoiding her eyes. Evelyn didn't sit right away. She placed Diane's folder on the coffee table with deliberate care, then lowered herself into her old spot on the couch. Her fingers brushed the fabric, the ghost of 1,000 family evenings echoing beneath her touch. "Mom," Adam started, his voice stiff, "I want to explain." "No," Evelyn interrupted, her voice steady. "You've explained enough. Now you're going to listen." Adam's mouth opened, then closed. He sank back into the chair like a scolded child. Evelyn tapped the folder. "Do you know what this is?" He shook his head. "These are records," she said. "Accounts your father set up. Accounts meant to protect me. Diane helped him organize them before he passed. And now Diane has helped me see what you've been doing with them." Adam's face paled. "Mom, don't you dare deny it." Her tone cut through the air like glass. "Withdrawals I never authorized. Transfers that don't make sense. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I'd stay quiet. But I'm done being quiet." The silence stretched between them, broken only by the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Finally Adam rubbed his temples. I didn't mean to hurt you, I was drowning, Mom. The debt, it was crushing me. Clara's parents offered help, but only if they moved in. I made the wrong choice, I see that now, but I didn't know what else to do. You chose to betray me, Evelyn said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. You treated me like a burden to be moved out of the way, when in reality you were the one hiding behind lies. Adam's eyes glistened. I thought I was protecting you from the truth. Don't twist this, Evelyn snapped. You weren't protecting me, you were protecting yourself, and now you've lost my trust. She leaned forward, her words deliberate. Here's how this is going to go. I will no longer be cut out of decisions. I will no longer be lied to. I am not a piece on your chessboard, Adam. I am your mother and I will be treated with respect. If you want a relationship with me, it will be on my terms, not yours. Adam swallowed hard. And if I can't do that, Evelyn didn't blink, then you'll lose me. And I don't think you're ready for that. The words landed heavy. For a moment, Adam's shoulders slumped, as if the fight had drained out of him. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. Then prove it. Evelyn said. Respect my boundaries. Admit what you've done. And make it right. The air shifted, less combative, more. Adam finally met her eyes, the boy she once knew flickering in his expression. I will, he said. I'll make it right. But it's going to take time. Evelyn nodded slowly. Time is all I'll give you. No more lies. No more decisions behind my back. From now on I choose my path. She stood, gathering the folder, her hands steady. Adam rose too, but there was no hug, no warmth, only a fragile, uncertain truce. At the doorway Evelyn turned back. You don't own me, Adam. Remember that. As Evelyn stepped outside, the cool evening air filled her lungs. For the first time in months, she felt taller, stronger, but even with Adam's promise, she knew the fight wasn't over. The next chapter would be hers to write. I've spent too many years living for others. It's time to live for myself. The morning sun streamed through the thin curtains of Evelyn's apartment, painting the walls in soft gold. For once she didn't feel the heaviness of dread pressing on her chest. Instead she felt possibility. She sat at the kitchen table, a fresh sheet of paper before her. Instead of listing what she'd lost, she wrote what she wanted to gain. Travel, new friendships, my own space, real, lasting. A project that belongs only to me. She underlined the last one twice. For too long she'd been defined by her roles, wife, mother, caretaker. Now, she wanted something that was wholly Evelyn. Later that week, she met Grace for coffee. Grace took one look at her and raised an eyebrow. Well, don't you look lighter? Evelyn smiled. I feel lighter. For the first time I told Adam exactly what I need. And now, I think it's time I start doing things for myself. Grace grinned. About time. So what's first? Evelyn thought for a moment, then said, I've always wanted to see the Grand Canyon. Grace's laughter bubbled over the table. Then book it. Don't just talk about it, book it. Back at her apartment, Evelyn opened her laptop and pulled up a travel site. Her hands trembled as she typed in dates. It felt almost rebellious, making plans without considering anyone else's schedule. When the confirmation email pinged her inbox, Evelyn whispered to herself, I did it. The trip was a month away, but even having it on the horizon filled her with a sense of control she hadn't felt in years. In the meantime, she began volunteering at the local community center, helping seniors with reading and paperwork. The work was simple, but fulfilling. She loved the gratitude in their smiles, the stories they shared. For once she wasn't invisible, she was needed, not as a burden but as a giver. At night she started sketching out a memoir project, scribbling down memories of her childhood, her marriage, her life as a young mother. Writing wasn't easy, but it felt like stitching herself back together. Adam called occasionally, his voice was softer now. Careful. How are you, Mom? I'm fine, she'd answer. Busy. There was always a pause after that, as if he didn't quite know how to exist in this new dynamic. One where she wasn't waiting by the phone, one where she had her own life outside of him. Clara texted once. A short message. Hope you're doing well, Evelyn. Stared at it for a long moment before replying, I am. It wasn't a lie anymore. One evening, Grace stopped by and found Evelyn surrounded by travel books, sticky notes marking the pages. Look at you, Grace said, dropping onto the couch, planning like a college kid about to backpack Europe. Evelyn laughed, a sound that felt freer than it had in months. I wasted too many years letting other people decide what was best for me. That's over. The night before her trip, Evelyn packed a small suitcase, clothes, a journal, a camera. She paused, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair, streaked with gray, framed a face lined by years of love, loss, and endurance. For once, she didn't see weariness. She saw resilience. Evelyn zipped up the suitcase and set it by the door. Tomorrow she'd board a plane to the Grand Canyon. Tomorrow she would begin the life she chose for herself. The wounds were deep, but they were healing, one step at a time. The Grand Canyon was everything Evelyn had dreamed it would be. Vast, humbling, timeless. Standing at the edge of the cliff, the wind tugging at her hair, she felt small and infinite all at once. For days she hiked trails, snapped photos, and scribbled notes in her journal. Every sunrise painted the canyon in golds and reds. Every sunset washed it in lavender. Each moment chipped away at the bitterness she'd been carrying. For the first time in years, she wasn't Evelyn the widow, Evelyn the mother, or Evelyn the burden. She was simply Evelyn, curious, alive. When she returned home, her suitcase dusty and her heart lighter, a voicemail from Adam waited on her phone. Mom, his voice cracked, raw. I know I've hurt you. I don't expect you to forgive me overnight, but I miss you. I want to make this right. Please, let me try. Evelyn listened twice before setting the phone down. She didn't delete it. Weeks passed. Evelyn continued volunteering at the community center, her memoir project growing page by page. Grace often joined her for lunch, teasing, "You've got more of a social life than I do these days." But late at night, when the apartment was quiet, she found herself replaying Adam's voicemail. Finally, she called him back. "Adam, if you want to talk, we'll do it on neutral ground. No house, no Clara, just us." He agreed instantly. They met at a park, benches shaded beneath sprawling oak trees. Adam looked nervous, almost boyish as he sat down beside her. "I'm glad you came," he said. Evelyn folded her hands in her lap. "I didn't come for you. I came for me. I need closure, Adam. I need to know if we can rebuild something, anything, or if it's too late." Adam's eyes filled. "I was wrong, Mom. About everything. I was scared, ashamed of the mess I'd made. I thought pushing you out was protecting you. But I see now it was cruel. You deserved better." Evelyn studied him, her heart torn. "Do you realize how much you made me doubt my worth? How small you made me feel?" "Yes," Adam whispered, "and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." The two sat in silence, the sounds of children playing nearby filling the air. For the first time, Evelyn noticed how much older Adam looked, how guilt had etched lines into his face. She reached into her bag and pulled out her journal. "I've been writing. About everything. About me. About you." She placed it on his lap. "Read it when you're ready. Maybe then you'll understand what this did to me." Adam clutched the journal, as though it were a lifeline. "Thank you, Mom." Evelyn nodded. "Don't thank me yet. Forgiveness isn't a gift you can demand. It's something you earn, one day at a time." As she left the park, Evelyn didn't feel whole. Not yet, but she felt a seed of healing had been planted. That night she lit a candle by her window and whispered to herself, "I'm not the same woman I was months ago. I'm stronger now. And I will never let anyone silence me again." Evelyn closed her eyes, letting the flame flicker against the glass. For the first time, she felt peace stirring inside her, fragile but real. "This was my fresh start, and it was everything I could have ever wanted." Spring swept into the city with blooming cherry trees and warm breezes, and with it came a new energy in Evelyn's life. She filled her calendar with community events, lunches with friends, and weekend art class. Her days were no longer defined by waiting for someone else's call. She decided where to be, who to see and what to do. One morning, she stood in front of a classroom of strangers, charcoal in hand, sketching the outline of a vase of wildflowers. The instructor walked past, nodding approvingly. Evelyn's heart thrummed. She hadn't drawn in decades. Not since she'd been a girl in high school. Now every smudge of charcoal felt like a piece of her spirit being reclaimed. Adam reached out more often, this time with humility rather than excuses. He showed up at the community center one afternoon, sitting in the back while Evelyn read aloud to a group of seniors. When she noticed him, their eyes met briefly. No words, just a quiet acknowledgement. Later, as they walked to her car, Adam said softly, "You look happy." "I am," Evelyn replied, her tone calm, not defensive. For once she didn't feel the need to explain herself. Adam smiled faintly. "I want to learn how to be part of your life again. The right way." Evelyn nodded. "Then keep showing up. That's all." Meanwhile, Clara kept her distance, sending the occasional polite text. Evelyn didn't resent her. She just didn't invest energy in people who treated her as disposable. Her focus was elsewhere now, on herself, on her growth, on her peace. Grace teased her over lunch one day. "You've got a glow about you, Evelyn. Don't tell me you're seeing someone." Evelyn laughed. "No men, just me. And honestly, that's enough." Then came the letter. It arrived in a thick envelope, embossed with the law firm's name. Evelyn opened it at the kitchen table, her tea cooling beside her. As she scanned the words, her breath caught. Her late husband's brother, whom she hadn't spoken to in years, had passed away. In his will, he had left her a significant inheritance, enough to change everything. Evelyn's hands trembled as she set the letter down. She thought of the choices it opened, a real home she could buy outright, travel anywhere she dreamed, even the security of never needing to rely on Adam again. She rose from the table and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was sinking low, painting the horizon in streaks of pink and gold. Her chest swelled with something new. Not just relief, not just joy, but power. For the first time in her life, she wasn't at the mercy of anyone else's choices. That night, she called Grace. "You won't believe this," she said breathlessly, explaining the inheritance. Grace whooped on the other end. "Evelyn, this is it. This is your chance to build the life you've always wanted. No strings, no compromises." Evelyn smiled through tears. "That's exactly what I'm going to do." She stood before her mirror, whispering to her reflection, "What's next for me? I'm finally free, and it's better than I ever imagined." The moving truck pulled away from the curb, leaving Evelyn standing in front of her new apartment building. It wasn't just any apartment. It was hers, bought outright with her inheritance. No landlord to answer to. No one dictating her space. For the first time in decades, every square foot belonged only to her. Inside, sunlight poured through tall windows, spilling across polished wood floors. Evelyn set her suitcase down and simply stood there, breathing it all in. She decorated with care, warm rugs, her favorite armchair, paintings she'd picked out herself. Not a trace of compromise. It was home. Not borrowed. Not shared. Not temporary. Hers. Her days fell into a rhythm of joy. She painted in the mornings, took long walks in the afternoons, and explored the bustling new city she'd moved to. Coffee shops became her haunts. Libraries her sanctuaries. Strangers turned into acquaintances. Acquaintances into friends. At night she wrote in her journal, not about pain anymore, but about discovery. The thrill of being lost in a new neighborhood, the beauty of a quiet park, the simple joy of choosing what she wanted for dinner without considering anyone else's need. Each entry began with the same words. "Today I lived." Adam and Clara visited one weekend. Evelyn welcomed them warmly but without hesitation drew her boundaries. No more hushed tones about her future. No decisions made behind her back. They were guests, not caretakers. Adam walked through her apartment, his expression a mix of awe and guilt. "You've built something beautiful here, Mom," he said. "I built it for me," Evelyn replied gently, "and I won't apologize for that." For the first time, Adam didn't argue, didn't offer advice. He simply nodded, as though he finally understood. Later that night, Evelyn sat on her balcony with a glass of wine. The city twinkled around her, alive with sounds of laughter and music. She thought of the woman she had been months ago, quiet, afraid, invisible. And she thought of the woman she had become, strong, unshakable, free. Her journey hadn't erased the scars, the betrayal, the displacement, the loneliness. Those would always be part of her story, but now they were chapters, not definitions. She had taken every wound and turned it into fuel for her freedom. Grace called as she often did, and Evelyn laughed when her friend teased, "I can barely keep up with you these days. You're busier than I am. Life's too short to wait anymore," Evelyn said, smiling at the skyline. "I wasted too much of it waiting already." As the night deepened, Evelyn leaned back in her chair and let the breeze wash over her. Her heart felt light, her spirit unburdened. She had found not just peace, but possibility. Evelyn looked at the horizon, her voice a whisper meant only for herself. "This is just the beginning." And with that she smiled, ready for whatever came next.